the college played a very significant role in the Tuskegee program, and actually we heeded the call in ways that no other institution, predominantly white institution, responded to back in 1965. So people on campus are aware of what you did. You really have been history makers and pathfinders. You're going to be the guest of the president's office today. So now we also don't want you to leave campus without seeing the James Reeb Memorial that we dedicated in March, and had a wonderful celebration. Actually, it was a 2.5-week celebration.
Hi, Lois Barley. I joined them a long time ago, but I just want to say,
how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
We are honored to have as our speaker today Bert Phillips, former Dean of Students at Tuskegee Institute and Director of the Tuskegee Institute Summer Education Program. He will be introduced by Paul Benson, who was a participant in the program, and Paul is a college professor in Dallas, Texas.
Dean Bert Phillips came to St. Olaf 50 years ago. He came to this very podium and invited and challenged St. Olaf students to come to Alabama and be part of his teachers brigade. A few of us are here today to celebrate that 50th anniversary. We are Phillips followers.
And this was a serious period of time. And these college students went out and they tutored in 30 different centers in 11 Black Belt counties. There were 900 students altogether. Over 8,000 young people and adults were tutored or were trained or were taught in different ways. One of the things that the St. Olaf students didn't realize is that while they were pretty safe here in Minnesota, coming down to Alabama at that period of time, because they were white and because they were working from a black college campus and because they were considered to be sympathizers with blacks, they were also in danger. And yet they still came. And these college students I read on your website that this is the most diverse freshman class you've ever had.
This is our largest, most
Okay, Larson.
I bet you can't pick out who I am, though.
I'll bet I can.
Look anything like
Well, you got quite a few Larsons in here, don't you?
Without looking at the name.
As we dug into the life of James Reeb at St. Olaf, it became really clear that his life's work was in the best tradition of the college. He looked around, saw things that should be happening, jumped in with both feet, and made them come to fruition. And that's really the story of St. Olaf College.
Last spring was our opportunity to celebrate the life and career and martyrdom of our alum, James Reeb, who answered Martin Luther King's call, went to Selma during the Voting Right March, and was murdered on the streets. And I just want to say on behalf of your college how proud we are of the commitment that you made and the project that you undertook, and how happy we are that you're back today.
We had a lot of students who were anxious to serve in some way, to do something worthwhile, to make it.
Every now and then I would pull out my scrapbook and I would think about the people we met, the children we met.
I still think about it to this day. I think I sort of, at that point in my life, left this world, got into the other world.
I thought maybe that had just occurred for me, but talking to some of the others on the phone, they also felt the same. And I said, gee, wouldn't it be great to get together after 30 years? And they said, yeah, let's do that.
I'm glad you're going back. I hope they don't think that those of us who came down there forgot them that summer.
State your name and your class year for the record. Make sure you state your name.
Since I was a nursing major at St. Olaf,
I was a part of a health education team, so a group of us would go from site to site and conduct health education programs.
And we were in the music group, and we went to so many different places, and any little bit of time we spent there couldn't have had any effect on anybody. And so I looked at it that way until I heard your speech, and I really appreciate you telling that it did have an effect, and it's taken me many years to realize this.
And I guess what I'm saying is that the impact of Tuskegee has stayed with me, and I suspect all of us, all through our life.
Anyway, I think that's one of the things I've taken away, is the differences that are there but really aren't that big a deal.
Right. Of those 900 students, there were about 100 that were not from Tuskegee, and 65 of those were from St. Olaf.
Several things struck me, having grown up in Minnesota, Mankato, Minnesota, where there were no blacks. I was put into a community down there that I felt compelled to go to because of what was going on in the news and all of the civil rights movements and the reality of the what I thought was evil being done on people just trying to be real citizens.
Until today, I had not even thought of what I might have given the students that I had. They gave me a lot, and they were very welcoming and warm.
The thing that really struck me was how nice and welcoming both the students and the college kids were to our presence. Here they have whites all over the place that are really causing them major problems, creating an environment of segregation, and yet we were welcomed in a way that was really quite extraordinary. I thought that that was one of the best things that I ever came away with. And when Charleston happened just a little while ago, the response that those people had is the way I felt again 40 years or 50 years ago.
When I was in Lowndes County a few years ago, just talking to a lot of people in different areas, many who had never even been a part of TISEP still talked about the impact it had made there in Lowndes County and how it reverberated across the county.
And I almost felt, I'm so glad to hear what you've said, Dean Phillips, because I came away feeling like I got so much out of this, I had no clue what I was able to give. I mean, I thought I was giving something, but I had no clue.
We were living in dorms because we were in the music group, and I thought the food was really good. I especially like cornbread. I have not had cornbread as good as that since.
I hated the grits.
Every morning. It was St. Olaf students mixing at every table. You had to have both groups. So we were really talking to one another and getting to know one another. And I'm sitting there, and there are two very good-looking men right across from me, and my roommate sitting next to me. My roommate was a Tuskegee student. Oh, yeah. One of them looks at me and he says, "So what do you think you're doing here?" It kind of threw me. And then he says, "Why did you come?" And I said, "Where else would I earn $900 once?" That one he understood completely. And from that point on, we had no problem communicating.
It was a guy, excuse me guys, and he was white, and he did something either really embarrassing or said something. And the first thing I thought, I hope nobody knows he's from St. Olaf. And then I thought, oh my gosh, of course he does.
I was an exchange student at Talladega during the following year, the January to May of 1966. Well, I've got a whole bunch of stuff in here that I've got the Star Tribune from Monday, March 22, 1965, Montgomery March, begun by thousands. So this was the news as you were being recruited by the dean to...
I visited with Dr. Buxted at his home about 3 years ago.
He somehow heard about the Tuskegee program, and it's just called to Dean Phillips that started the whole ball rolling. You were so intent on the idea that it wouldn't be just a Tuskegee student program, that you wanted others to come and be part of it. That's enormously important.
He came down to visit Steve Stoddard and myself.
Oh my.
And that's when the connection was made with Dean Phillips.
So you were there at that time,
Yeah.
And did you do the introduction?
I don't know, I'm sure we were involved in making sure that the contact was made, but he was there just to make sure we were okay. He came shortly after the Selma March.
Yeah.
And that's where it took off.
Unfortunately, there were some memory issues, and he didn't remember much about the TISEP program. When I showed him a picture and I said, "Who was this guy over here?" And he said, well, he didn't remember, probably an administrator from the Tuskegee office.
The very first program we started, the one I mentioned in chapel this morning, when those 150 students came at 5 o'clock in the morning to get started, we wanted to call it the Tuskegee Institute Community Action Corps. And we received a call from Sergeant Schreiber because Peace Corps was just getting started, really getting going then, and he felt that anything that sounded too much like that could take away, so we changed it from the Tuskegee Community Action Corps to the Tuskegee Institute Community Education Program. And so that's where that started. So it was going on for a year. Those first students, as I've said to some of you, had to actually walk sometimes 3 to 5 miles because we had no transportation. But then as we began to get into the spring of 1965, we were able to get the Federal Work-Study Program. And so by the time the St. Olaf students came in the summer of '65, we had the Federal Work-Study Program. At the same time, though, to get this massive program going for the summer of '65, we needed to get a grant. And so we applied for a grant from the Office of Economic Opportunity, which is part of Lyndon Johnson's War on Poverty. That's what supported us in terms of the bands, the mobile library, the band that took the choir around, the band that took the drama and arts group around, and so forth. And then it went on in '66 and '67. Those same county groups that you all knew about, that were kind of organizing groups that supported you in your centers in the county, well, we called all of them together and we set up Southeast Alabama Self-Help Association. And that's the one that we turned over the rest of our assets, and then they became a community development program that was very active. They set up a feeder pig program. They said they built apartments that were low-income apartments and also apartments for seniors. And they also were able to get a federal credit union started that could help people with their savings and things, because as you may recall, even though blacks would put money into banks there, the banks still treated them very shabbily. And so this was in that rural area. They wanted to set up their own credit union, and that's what they did.
Things did change pretty dramatically, started to change pretty dramatically once civil rights legislation started to be passed, even in the South. The adventure, oh my, the adventure, that we could, not have an ordinary summer job, but have something really interesting to do.
My classroom was a chemistry lab, and I'm going to turn on the Bunsen burner just to smell the gas. Just to smell it, and then turn it off, right? I'm not going to conduct an experiment. There's water, you turn on the gas, there's no gas. I think it's off for the summer, maybe. So then I turn on the water, and there's no water. And then I look, and there's no plumbing. That's not equal.
I was almost killed, actually, 3 or 4 times. Lucy and I, one of our first experiences when we were down there is we went into this pool hall, and someone, I think, asked where we were from, or they could tell by our accents anyway that we weren't from there. They told us to get out of there. And I remember I wanted to stay, and you said, no, I think we better go. But that wasn't, but if we had stayed, we probably would have been killed.
But William Henry and I would drive in this van, and the van again had an upright acoustical piano. It had chairs for all of us. It had the music stands. It had any instruments that we needed, basically the instruments we could find or had. And we'd drive to a place, and everybody'd help pitch in getting all the stuff out. Well, Alabama was also like this. Well, this was a 40 Econoline van, as I recall. And we'd go up the hill like this. They'd come up alongside of us, and so it was a pickup truck, as I recall. We motioned them to pass, and they kind of waved, as I recall. And then the next thing that happened was that they noticed who was in the car. And so they reached around, and they didn't take a gun, but they had a gun on the gun rack behind them. And then they go like this.
Wow.
And then they just laughed, and then they went on. So I certainly
Just letting
remember,
you know
yeah,
what
I
they
certainly
thought.
remember.
I went on to graduate school, and as I told somebody here, I was at Case Western during Kent State during the anti-war demonstrations, and so this whole 60s thing just continued for me. And I studied at that point, which I probably wouldn't have done otherwise, community organization and development.
My name is Solveig, and I was the class of 67, classmate of Gail's and Christie's and several other people who were there. Tuskegee came into my life when they came back, and they talked about it a lot. And the reverberations of that caused some of us to want to do something else than what we had been doing previously. And the next summer, the two of them and another of our friends went to Detroit in St. Olaf's listening witness program. And the summer after that, I went into the Peace Corps, and she went into the Peace Corps. I mean, there were other echoes of the power of what they were passing along. I'm sure I'm not the only one with activist children who heard about our experiences and our friends' experiences and are carrying on in ways that are so important.
I hope maybe out of your reunion we can come up with an idea or a website or what, because I talked to Tuskegee Institute alumni. They haven't had a real reunion. Really, Jeff's the only one who brought a group together at any time since in these 50 years. But there are a lot of them that I'm sure would like to interact with you all, as you might with them, and even ones that you perhaps didn't know personally. And so we might think about that. Paul, we won't lay it on your lap. You've done enough already, but perhaps someone in the group, or all of us, or a group, small group, could work something out, because it'd be interesting. So many of you have done so many interesting, wonderful things in your lives since that time, and so have your counterparts from Tuskegee. And if we could get those, get all of you just interact at times, we could...
February.
Not necessarily this one.
Not here.
But soon, right?
All right. In this day and age, we need to inspire our young people to think about service, to think about doing the same things that you did, to care about others. It does make a difference.